dear audience. Good afternoon and good morning, dear speakers. We are today in the events of the Russian Arbitration Center Winter Academy about the concept of diversity, and the topic of today's event is Divided We Fall, Expanding Diversity and Fighting Intersectionality in International Arbitration. Before I move to the introduction of our distinguished panelists, I would like to say that as a starting point for our discussion today, let us start from the concept of intersectionality, which is best described as a theory or the study of overlap between various social identities and how this overlap contributes to the oppression or the discrimination that an individual can experience. That's the basic sociological definition of intersectionality. Speaking in arbitration terms, the purpose of our talk today is to take a closer look at several aspects of diversity in arbitration, and our talk will focus on 5 key areas, such as gender, age, nationality, ethnicity, as well as socio-economic and cultural aspects of diversity. And we will exchange views on how these areas can interrelate in a modern world of arbitration, whether there can be any synergy between them in fighting intersectionality, and what are the likely challenges. Without further ado, I will now introduce our esteemed speakers for today's webinar, and I will start perhaps with the one who is early in the day today, and this is Dana MacGrath from New York, and it's 8:30 in the morning in New York now. As many of you may know, Dana MacGrath is the president of ArbitralWomen, and apart from that capacity, Dana MacGrath is an independent arbitrator with 2 decades of experience in international dispute resolution. Dana's unique mix of experience includes serving as an arbitrator, arbitration practitioner, and in-house counsel in arbitration finance. Dana worked with several international law firms, among those are C.D. Austin, Elena, O'Malley and Myers, Sullivan and Cromwell. And her international arbitration experience involved a variety of industries, such as oil and gas, LNG, energy, construction, finance, and many other industries. Dana also serves on the steering committees of ERA Arbitration Pledge and the Racial Equality for Arbitration Lawyers. And Dana is also on the Advisory Council of the Rising Arbitrators Initiative and on the Campaign for Green Arbitration North America Subcommittee. Dana, very much welcome. Our next speaker, in terms of the distance from where we are now and in terms of the time in the day, is Veronika Sandler. Veronika is from Buenos Aires, and I guess that it's maybe 10:30 in Buenos Aires right now.
Exactly. Yes, correct.
Good morning as well to you, Veronika. Veronika hi, is a co-founder of Women's Way in Arbitration in Latin America, and Veronika is also a professor of University of Buenos Aires. Veronika has a great practice in international and domestic arbitrations, as well as in public international law and media law. Veronika has participated in various arbitrations in ICSID, ICDR, ICC, as well as in domestic arbitrations in Argentina, in Buenos Aires Stock Exchange, in Business Center for Mediation and Arbitration, and in domestic courts. Veronika also coaches a team of University of Buenos Aires University in FDI Midcourt, and this team has achieved remarkable results with Veronika's coaching. Veronika is also an author and co-author of several articles on arbitration, and she frequently participates as a speaker in seminars, conferences on commercial and investment arbitration matters. Welcome, Veronika. The rest of our
Thank you, Elena.
Yeah, thank you. The rest of our panel is based in Moscow, and I will perhaps then move to Ilya Putilin, our next speaker. Ilya represents today the initiative which is called Racial Equality for Arbitration Lawyers. And Ilya is also a founder at Putilin Dispute Management. Ilya Putilin is a civil law qualified lawyer with 10 years of experience in cross-border disputes, which he gained both as counsel working in international law firms and also as an in-house lawyer. Ilya represented clients in over 100 of disputes between various arbitral institutions throughout the world, and Ilya also has overseen administration of thousands of arbitrations at his time with Asian International Arbitration Center. At present, Ilya divides his time between practice, lecturing, and publishing. Ilya is also a member-elect of the Tashkent International Arbitration Center, the president of the Central Asian Arbitration Association, and is one of co-founders of the Bishkek Arbitration Days. Ilya, welcome to the panel.
Thank you, Elena.
Finally, our speaker from Moscow, Victoria Burachevskaya, who is one of the co-founders of recent initiative Russian Women in Arbitration. Veronika is also is an associate at the Russian law firm Yegorov-Poginsky, Afanasyev and Partners. And previously, Veronika also worked in Stockholm as an associate at one of the leading Nordic law firms. Veronika represents clients in various commercial and investment arbitration proceedings under the Insitute, Exceed, ICC, SCC, and other rules. And Veronika received an LLM degree in international arbitration from Stockholm University, the R.E.A.L program, and she completed an internship at the SCC Arbitration Institute. Veronika, very much welcome as well.
Thank you, Elena.
Now, when we know each other and the audience knows our speakers, I suggest that we move to the first aspect that we wanted to discuss today, which is the gender and age and the interrelation between these two subtopics within a broader topic of diversity in international arbitration. And our main speaker for this subtopic is Ilya Putilin, and I give the floor to Ilya.
Thank you, Elena. First of all, it's a pleasure to be today on behalf of Racial Equality for Arbitration Lawyers, and good day to you, everyone here. Back in 2015, Professor Frank published an article entitled Diversity Challenge, exploring the invisible Institute of International Arbitration. And according to this article, a median international arbitrator is a 53-year-old male from a developed country. A median international arbitration counsel is a 46-year-old male from a developed country. So we are in 2022. Has something changed since 2015? Based on my experience in an institution as counsel, as an arbitrator, I'd say the changes have been marginal. First, why there has been a change? Well, many institutions, many law firms, and many international organizations such as ArbitralWomen, such as Rising, I beg your pardon, Rising Arbitrators Initiative, started implementing initiatives to open up the world of international arbitration to unrepresented or underrepresented participants, such as younger arbitration practitioners, such as women. And I'd say on the gender front, the improvements are great. It's visible based on the exit statistics, based on the institutional statistics. However, we're still not there. On the age front, however, there is still much to be done. So why the change has been marginal? Well, there is a common misconception that age defines experience and expertise. To me, it's not. To me, age is just a number. What is really important is expertise and experience, and it is relevant and it can be demonstrated on the CV or on the publication front, on the lecturing front, etc., etc., etc. And we, as stakeholders, both institutional, organizational, council, arbitrator, should strive to allow younger practitioners to enter the world of international arbitration. As the R.E.A.L, we have implemented scholarships for younger practitioners to attend conferences to gain this necessary expertise and experience. Yes, of course, it's not, real work, so to say, but still it's something. It's the first step to open the doors for younger practitioners. And I think what is also important is that institutions implement more policies for younger arbitrators. ICC has done so, SCC has done so. Elena and Katarina tell us something about R.E.A.L, whether R.E.A.L has done something on this front. But I think it's very important. As a piece of advice to younger generations, maybe you should start looking for tribunal secretary appointments. It is an entryway in the world of international arbitration, arbitrators. As far as the council experience is concerned, well, there is not much to be said. Participate in Vismod. This is the easiest way to gain some practical experience in international commercial or international investment arbitration. So I think the gender and age, I'm not sure whether there has been any study that on intersectionality between gender and age. However, they are still two relevant topics and relevant subjects as far as the diversity in international commercial and international investment arbitration are concerned. And we should look further into these subjects. And we should, as I said, council, arbitrators, institutions, do more to improve the underrepresented younger practitioners, underrepresented women practitioners in arbitration. And I think during this session, we will explore what can be done, what should be done, and what must be done.
Yeah, thank you very much, Ilya. Totally agreed. And building a bridge from what you have just said to the real efforts and to what have been already done in practice in order to support young arbitration practitioners, I would ask Veronika from Russian Women in Arbitration to share the initiatives that Russian Women in Arbitration has recently implemented towards the aim of supporting young practitioners, young female practitioners in arbitration.
Yes, Elena, thank you so much. So the Russian Women in Arbitration, talking about age diversity and age or intersection of age and gender diversity, we were very happy to launch one of our initiatives, a scholarship to support young female practitioners, arbitration practitioners last year. So we did it in cooperation with Osborne Clark law firm. And we received amazing essays from our participants of the contest, writing essays contest, and quite inspiring essays. I mean, we also had a winner who received a scholarship, and we really, really hope that the winner will use it for either academic or any other arbitration activities. So that's one point that I wanted to add to Ilya's statement. Another issue that I wanted to raise is actually, I think, again, gender and age diversity is a very important topic. And what I see from my personal experience, and of course, it's not the same everywhere and not in all law firms, but sometimes you can actually see how many female arbitration practitioners, junior lawyers you have at the junior level, But when it comes to a senior level, the amount of senior female practitioners, especially partners, decreases. And again, it's not everywhere the same, but that's the picture that illustrates the problem still, in my opinion. And I also agree with Ilya that an important role of arbitral institutes actually in promoting young practitioners, young female practitioners, through various tools and mechanisms. For example, arbitral institutes could promote or recommend younger practitioners or academics when it comes to appointments for maybe smaller disputes, and etc. And many institutes already are already doing it. So I think we're on a good track.
Yeah, thank you very much, Veronica. On the one hand, indeed, we are on the good track, but on the other hand, when I was getting ready for our discussion today, I came across some statistics of arbitral institutions, and there is one fact that struck me the most, which is based on the statistics of ICC and SCC. And we know that these world institutions are pioneers in the field of diversity enhancement in arbitration, and especially SCC, whose efforts can be really praised because last year, according to the released statistics, SCC reached the gender parity in arbitral appointments. But speaking about the age, there is a fact that, for example, in ICC, the average age of women acting as arbitrators was 49 years. And in SCC, if I'm not mistaken, it was 45 years. So which is still, well, for someone it can be young, but again, this is something to think about in terms of maybe decreasing this age. And still 49 years, it's I think the age of a qualified arbitral practitioner, and it's not really what we mean when we speak about young arbitration practitioners. Of course, we are young in soul, but in terms of opportunities for development, maybe 49 years, it's too late. And of course, we should strive towards early appointments. And maybe one more question for the rest of our panel would be, maybe there are some tips based on your personal experience how young arbitral practitioners can get first appointments, both as a tribunal secretary, which Ilya mentioned, and as an arbitrator. Because in order to get appointments, you need experience, but in order to need experience, you need appointments. It's a classical chicken and egg problem, and maybe you can share some practical advice on how you can approach this. Yes, Ilya, please.
Yeah, thank you, Elena. You correctly mentioned about chicken and egg conundrum, and I think unless we do something, we will be stuck in this infinite loop of chicken and egg. What can you do? Well, my piece of advice would be know your client. If you want to be tribunal secretary, know arbitrators who use tribunal secretaries at the end of the day. This is how I got my first appointment as a tribunal secretary. The first appointment I got as an arbitrator was from institution. So know a person responsible at the institution. Attend conferences, attend events, express yourself. You must be known. Otherwise, you'll not get anything.
Yeah, thank you very much, Ilya. I think that it's a very up to the point and practical advice. Maybe just one more piece of advice from me, just to follow up on what you said, is to get in touch with arbitral institutions. And sometimes arbitral institutions have rosters of tribunal secretaries. For example, Tashkent International Arbitration Center has such. Maritime Commission in Moscow also has a roster of tribunal secretaries, and I think that it's updated regularly. So get in touch with the representatives of arbitral institutions to get enrolled on the list of tribunal secretaries, and just attend some events organized by arbitral institutions. And I think that this is also something that can help to get first appointments as tribunal secretaries. Dana, do you have some other considerations, and maybe you could share the experience of arbitral women in terms of promoting both gender and age diversity in international arbitration?
Yes, good morning from New York, everyone. I'd like to thank first the organizers for putting together this panel that focuses on the intersectionality between gender and a number of other aspects of diversity, including age, as we're discussing now, and nationality and ethnicity, and a number of different aspects of what makes us all human and a community in arbitration. So I think this topic is really important, and I commend you for it. Just a few words on ArbitralWomen and how it tries to improve the diversity with respect to age. This is an increasingly appreciated need and area for development, and I think the institutions, arbitral institutions, did take the lead, as they have in many aspects of diversity, and I commend them. So there are many young groups, as was mentioned, by the arbitral institutions, whether it's ICC-YAF or ICDR-Y and I are just two examples. The Y typically means young, and most organizations, most arbitral institutions have them. Similarly, I think that nonprofit organizations that are focused on diversity have a part of them, whether it's a group or a project that is focused on increasing the visibility and opportunities for young practitioners in the arbitration space. And you should remember that, a decade ago, specializing in arbitration was not really even on the radar for people who entered the legal profession. And now it is something that people are introduced to in their early studies. And as many have participated in the VISMOOT and JESSUP and other moots, they are introduced to a potential career in international law early. At ArbitralWomen, we have a group called YALP. Well, I pronounced that poorly. Let's just call it Young Arbitral Women Practitioners, which was the first young group for female practitioners. And it provides a networking platform for women below the age 40 who are seeking to address challenges arising in the early stages of their practice. And I want to emphasize the importance of peer-to-peer mentoring and networking, which I think is sometimes lost. I think very highly of our predecessors and those who have succeeded in the field of arbitration, and we have much to learn from them. But we also have much to learn from each other who are experiencing the new normal and a different world from those who started, a decade ago or a career ago. So you want to make the most of your peer-to-peer relationships, as well as your relationships with people who have been in the field for longer, because your path may not be the same as someone who you've revered and admired for their success in this field. Another way, as has been mentioned by many, of entering the arbitration space, even before you're a professional or a practitioner, is by participating in student teams. And this is an area where ArbitralWomen really tries to support the younger generation. ArbitralWomen typically does not accept as members students per se. We are a professional organization, so most of our members are practicing lawyers, whether they're practicing as counsel or practicing as arbitrator or academic professionals or professionals in the field. That said, ArbitralWomen definitely recognizes the importance of developing and supporting the professional development of younger members of the arbitration community while they are students and then while they are young practitioners. So as young practitioners, we do it mostly through our Young Arbitral Women Practitioners group, which I cannot pronounce, and it is my native language, but we also do it through supporting teams. And so I would suggest that if anyone is participating in a moot and looking for financial support, that they consider reaching out to the ArbitralWomen Moot Committee and seeing if there isn't an opportunity for us to support you. And nonetheless, even if we don't financially support you, we are happy to report on your team and your team's success. in our newsletter, and our newsletter gets wide readership, and you can author that yourself, and that will give you some additional visibility. With that, I'll turn it back over to my colleagues on the panel.
Yes, thank you very much, Dana. If any of the panelists would like to add some further ideas or perspective on the topic of gender and age. Okay, no further comments. Let me just briefly summarize what we discussed. Is that my main takeaway from our exchange of views is that efforts to contribute to regeneration of the pool of arbitrators and to ensure the continued supply of experienced and skilled arbitrators are very much welcomed, and many new arbitral initiatives work towards this, and much work still needs to be done, and I hope that we all will continue on that, and new initiatives like mentoring programs, scholarships, and moot courts will appear and contribute towards this goal. Our next subtopic that is on our agenda today is the interrelation between gender and nationality. And I pass the floor to Veronika Sandler from Women Weighing in Arbitration Latin America, who will share her perspective on this subtopic of gender and nationality. Please, Veronika.
Thank you, Elena. My thanks to the organizer for having put together this roundtable discussion. It's an honor to me to be here on behalf of Women Weighing in Arbitration. I don't know if you know Women Weighing in Arbitration, but Women Weighing in Arbitration is a no-profile organization where women and men work together to improve the presence of Latin American women professionals in the field of international arbitration. As Elena mentioned, my name is Veronika Sandler. I'm from Argentina. I'm born in Mexico, but I live in Buenos Aires. At university and then in my career, I started to take into account the underrepresentation of women in international arbitration. So some years ago, together with Maria Inés Corrá and Sandra González, two excellent lawyers in Latin America, and my friends, founded Women Weighing Arbitration Latam to do something to help us to develop our careers more equally in the field of arbitration. In a few words, no more events, conference, where it's only a miracle to find a women college. No more panels where women panelists were the exception. No more programs that held only the masculine perspective. I like to share with you some slides and show you some important concept that I think that we will talk in all the discussion. Give me 1 second, please. When we talk about the diversity is important to international arbitration because diversity refers to different values, attitudes, perspectives, different nationalities, gender, aptitudes. It's important to know that diversity is something that we need to improve, something that we need to develop to the success of the international arbitration. Be different is not a problem. Be different is something important to be better. This difference must be accepted, understood, and valued in each context. So, ensure the equal access to all the persons despite this difference. What is gender? Gender refers to the role society or culturally constructed to men or women, which roles are fundamentally in the way people define themselves. Of course, there are different types of gender nowadays, because there shouldn't be more than one model of what it means to be a human. And what we are talking about, or what is meant by nationality. After the Second World, the concept of nation and nationality got different meaning. The first, nation, took a legal or political character, while the second, nationality, took a historical and social character. As Hayes observes, nationality should not be confused with country or nation, a group of persons that speak a common language or who have a common tradition in areas such as religion, territory, political, culture, military history, economics, art, or intellectual matters. I want to share with you some words of Joseph Pla, a Spanish writer, that I like very much to put in perspective this topic. Hay que viajar para descubrir con los propios ojos que el mundo es muy pequeño. One must travel to discover with our own eyes that the world is very small. I think that when we talk about nationality, it's important or it's relevant to make a question. Is it fair to judge people only for their origin, nationality, or passport? In 1979, the Convention of the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women set out of one of its objectives, the elimination of all the stereotypes about women. This is not an easy task, because it's natural to me to make preconceptions, to make conscious or unconscious bias when you make an interaction with another person. But these conscious or unconscious perceptions, they are generalizations that often lead to restrictive generalizations. So it's important to take into account individual talent, a specific context, individual circumstances, leading therefore to mistake evaluation or incorrect decisions. Maybe when we talk about the perception about nationality, which we suppose that an individual will act in a given way because he or she was born or he lived or studied in a particular country, is something we need to change. We used to hear all the time, Argentines or Latin American women are like that or like this. Russian women do that or do this. But is it really useful perception? Or perhaps it may be more useful if we wish to focus on nationality positive perfection, to consider where the particular nationality may bring to improve the outcome of our case. Of course, in conclusion, that every nation has its own culture. I want to say its own soul. But the capacity to address a problem or deal with a dispute as a lawyer or as an arbitrator cannot be tried by the perspective to the cultural identity of the gross national product of the country, of it is supposed to the quality of the country education, of some virtues or defects we personally associate with a particular nationality. In this modern world, globalized world, such stereotypes are not acceptable. So I think that for start this conversation and this discussion, I think it's important to emphasize and propose for the discussion these important topics in connection with the bias or the unconscious or conscious bias that we found in the definition or concept of nationality. Thank you, Elena.
Veronica, for bringing your perspective to this discussion. Just maybe to follow up to our next speaker, who will also share their considerations within this subtopic of gender and nationality. I would like again to start from the very notion of international arbitration, which in itself applies that there is more than one nation, there is more than one perspective in terms of regions and countries that are involved in transnational disputes. And I think that a good illustration of that can be the investor-state disputes. And again, the situation with the appointment of arbitrators in investment arbitration. And sometimes we can face the situation when there is a dispute between, let's say, a Western investor and an African or an Asian state, and the tribunal that considers this dispute does not involve a single arbitrator from an African state or from an Asian state, because again, according to the current statistics, most of the arbitrators in investment arbitration are appointed from Europe, North America, and Latin America. Well, that's again the fact. There are some efforts trying to change this, and again, in the interest of justice and in the interest of fair and due process, that the perspective of each side of the dispute, including regional perspective and national perspective, is represented in the process of decision making, and still some more efforts to contribute to that are very much welcomed. And maybe our panelists who will now also cover this aspect of gender and nationality will share their perspective on what can be done, and maybe some real life examples of what is already done. With that, I will pass the floor to Ilya again for his perspective on this subtopic of gender and nationality.
Thank you, Elena. As we all know, the Insitute model law reads, "No person shall be precluded from acting as an arbitrator by reason of his or her nationality." Is it really so? Well, I say no. It wouldn't come as a surprise if I tell you that arbitration has become, or is, to a certain extent, a closed club. And if you're not coming from a jurisdiction with a really developed arbitration scene, it may be utterly difficult for you to enter the world of international, commercial, or investment arbitration. So, Elena, what can be done? And I think this is the main purpose of our discussion: what should be done, what can be done, and what has been already done. Well, nationality is a difficult subject because I haven't quoted the Insitute model law entirely. There is a caveat, unless the parties have agreed otherwise. So we, as the parties, as counsel for the parties, should enforce nationality diversity. As institutions, we should also do so. However, in certain rules, there is a so-called third nationality rule. Whether it's strictly enforced or not depends on the set of rules we are applying. But this is really important to remember, that there is no Western practice of arbitration, Eastern practice of arbitration. As you mentioned, arbitration has become truly international. So nationality, again, should not be an issue when we are selecting arbitrator, when we are selecting counsel. What matters is experience and expertise. And R.E.A.L has been established to promote national diversity and racial diversity for all members, counsel, arbitrators, students. This is what we are doing. This is what we are standing for. And I think Dana will also add what can be done further to improve national diversity of arbitrators, national diversity of counsel.
I couldn't hear you, but I will take that as a cue that it's my turn. On behalf of ArbitralWomen, I wanted to actually commend the launch of so many new organizations that are focused on regionalism and diversity, including WWA Latam, who's with us today, all of the organizations, Racial Equality for Arbitration Lawyers, and Russians Women Association. I mean, all of these organizations are focused on what I call regionalism, because the word nationality sometimes is blurred with ethnicity and other things. But I think that from a global perspective, which is what ArbitralWomen typically has, because we have members from around the world, for us to try to empower and assist women and men, but women is our focus around the world. We like to partner with organizations that have a regional or national focus, because it's those who are on the ground in the country or in the region that really understand the diversity challenges that are faced by the people there. And it's very hard to understand and project your understanding of the challenges faced by someone across the world. It's best explained by those who are there. So there's been, in the last few years, a number of events that are focused on shining the light on areas as to which there's less information about the diversity challenges. And much of that has been made possible by the new organizations that are launched in that region or to advocate for that region. So I think that partnering across organizations that are dedicated to diversity is really important to increasing overall diversity in the arbitration space, both on a national and a regional and an ethnic level. So that's where the intersectionality between gender and every other aspect of diversity comes out most clearly and can be advanced best. In terms of an example, I've met many many women and men over the course of my time as president of ArbitralWomen and in the international arbitration space generally, and I have seen students go from moot court experiences to peer mentorship and mentor-mentee relationships with people at ArbitralWomen, and ultimately use their experience as a student in international arbitration and their language skills to land them their first job. Sometimes it's as an intern, sometimes it's as an associate or a paid entry employee role as a lawyer at a law firm. Some of my former students are thriving at law firms right now after having done the VISMOOT, after having interned for either organizations or law firms, summer internships or other kinds of internships, and then applied and gotten actual associate jobs. So it's an incremental step for everyone who's starting their career. And in different parts of the world, the steps are different. I want to echo the value of serving as a tribunal secretary. That's not something that I did, but I see many having done it and gained valuable experience and insights into what it is to be an arbitrator and what it is to be a participant in the international arbitration community. So how you progress your career in international arbitration is different depending on where you are in the world. And so I really encourage everyone to reach out to the organizations that are in the part of the world where they are or where they want to be. And sometimes you're going to cross the world and be in a different place sometime soon. So best to cross-pollinate and get involved in as many organizations as possible. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely right. Thank you very much, Dana, for sharing your insights. Before we move to the next subtopic, which will be gender and ethnicity, maybe my final point that I wanted to share primarily with the Russian audience, because we have a lot of Russian participants today among the audience, is that perhaps the root of the problem of the lack of national diversity in the arbitration is the lack of visibility of national arbitrators. Because if you are asked to name a few arbitrators, let's say from Russia or from Ukraine or from Argentina, on top of your mind will be the top names. And it will be like 1, 2, 3, maximum 5 arbitrators. But again, they will be most probably very experienced senior arbitration practitioners. And the problem is that those who are also very qualified, but perhaps less experienced, but still also very well equipped to act as arbitrators or tribunal secretaries in international disputes, they are not that visible. And that's why I think what we all need to do is to increase the visibility of younger arbitrators from various countries all over the world. And one notable initiative in this regard is the recently launched Next Generation of Russian Arbitrators Guide, which is a comprehensive database of Russian arbitrators from various fields of legal and industry practices, which is easily available. It's free of charge, and you can find it online. I will perhaps also share a link in the chat for everyone. And what is notable about this initiative is that it's very rare in arbitration and in international arbitration and dispute resolution generally that you can access the database of arbitrators with various filters and categories of specialization free of charge. So I think that it's a unique product, and it definitely worth taking a closer look. And I also encourage other jurisdictions to, let's say, to follow the lead of these initiatives, and hopefully that this experience will be translated and soon we'll see some other databases of Argentinian, American, Ukrainian, Belarus, and other arbitrators from all over the world. Yes, Elena.
And then just to add 2 cents, I think what you mentioned is absolutely correct. What I want to add is increase visibility of a jurisdiction. A good example is Singapore. If you have a look at Singaporean lawyers traveling abroad, they are promoting Singaporean law, they are promoting SIAC, they are promoting themselves and jurisdiction. And it is beneficial to everyone. So we as Russian practitioners or practitioners based in Russia should be closely involved in lawmaking process, should be closely involved in developing the arbitration scene, should be closely involved in promoting arbitration. Russia is as a safe seat. So this is something that can be done by us, regardless of whether we are students, in-house lawyers, counsel, arbitrators, or members of institutions.
Yeah, very valid point, Leah. Thank you. Unless we have any further comments from other speakers with regard to gender and nationality, I suggest that we move to gender and ethnicity. And within this subtopic, I would like to give the floor again to Dana MacGrath from ArbitralWomen to share her perspective on gender and ethnicity.
Thank you, Elena. So ArbitralWomen, as I mentioned before, is a global organization. And so by definition, we have a mix of women with different nationalities and ethnicity. And, you know, I would start specifically just taking a look at, you know, the members of our board of directors who are on the left. You can just sort of tell by looking at them that there is a wide range of diversity and ethnicity, race and background, and that really helps ArbitralWomen in its ability to launch programming that is going to best promote women around the world of all different race and ethnicities. It also, I think, contributes to the thought leadership that ArbitralWomen is able to give and share with other organizations that are newer to the field of diversity. And it allows new ideas and new thought. So, you know, right now we're talking about ethnicity and race, but I think that we have all been touching upon different topics, including age and other aspects, as we discuss all of these things. So I'd also kind of highlight that the ArbitralWomen board is diverse, not only with respect to race and ethnicity, but also obviously as with respect to nationality, that, you know, is somewhat intertwined with ethnicity and race, although people are moving around the world. And also age. I think that you can tell that we have some very young people on our board and some senior people on our board, and that is always the case. And we actually have elections coming up in June of 2022 for a new board. Our board changes every 2 years, and that is an opportunity for new, fresh faces to join the ArbitralWomen board and keep the organization young, while also having the benefit of leadership of people in the space for many, many years. And just to sort of echo what has been said before, the best way, I think, to promote those who are underrepresented of a certain race or ethnicity is to partner with organizations that are closer to understanding what the challenges are that they face. And so we do that regularly, as I mentioned before. We also report on initiatives that have been launched to support underrepresented groups, including most recently, we reported on the research and a list with respect to underrepresented people of color in the arbitration space, women of color, as well as just men and women of color. We've reported on that in our news page, and we've interviewed people who are focused on empowering those who are underrepresented due to race or ethnicity. We do that also by capturing events like today that shine the light on where work is needed in our newsletters. So we try to capture the takeaways and key messages and ways that people can help improve the situation in our event reports. So that's sort of a shout out to all of you that are working in this area. Please share your stories, share what you're doing with ArbitralWomen or with the organizations that are in your region or in, closer to what you are involved in, because sharing the information and accounts of what's being done empowers other people to do it as well, so that everybody can walk the talk and not just talk about it, but actually both talk about it and bring it into fruition, try to actually effectuate change. So it takes all of us working together and understanding the challenges that each other face and helping each other to move the needle incrementally. I also wanted to give a shout out to the Arbitration Pledge. That's the Equal Representation in Arbitration Pledge, which is a global organization that is also dedicated to promoting women, but not only women, to promoting diversity generally. And the Arbitration Pledge has national groups around the world. I know there are several in Europe. We've recently launched one in the United States. I know there's one that's focused on Latin America. So when it comes to trying to empower those who face obstacles due to their ethnicity or race, it's good to reach out to organizations that may be global in nature, but have national or regional groups or chapters or committees, whatever terminology they use. They generally try to have a presence in a number of places that is more specific to the region. So thank you. I'll turn it back to the panelists.
Thanks, Dana. My next question would be to Ilya Putilin. Ilya, you are here on this panel now as an ambassador of Racial Equality for Arbitration Lawyers Organization. And my question for you is, what is the interrelation between racial and ethnical aspects in terms of promoting both these aspects within the wider context of diversity in international arbitration, and what initiatives are promoted by R.E.A.L in this regard?
Thank you, Elena. As we have already mentioned several times today, arbitration has become international, which means that it is prone to the same issues our global community faces every day. And one of such issues is racial discrimination. To combat it, R.E.A.L has been established. Unfortunately, racial discrimination everywhere, be it at the workplace or international arbitration, is something not really spoken of. So the first and one of the main strategic aims of R.E.A.L was to create a safe environment for those who are discriminated, who feel discriminated, to discuss the problems they're facing. And this is not just emotional support. This is also professional support, a psychological support. And what I'm proud of, that all R.E.A.L ambassadors, all chairs are very approachable. You can drop us an email and we can discuss everything and with everyone. So you are not alone there. This is first thing. The second thing is what we have done as R.E.A.L is we encourage unrepresented groups to step out of the shadow, to feel empowered, and we do so by establishing various scholarships. To date, I think R.E.A.L has launched more than 70 scholarships for unrepresented or those in financial need to attend conferences such as GAR, to attend courses such as Columbia, CARP, International Commercial Arbitration Diploma. And after these individuals attend these conferences, we encourage them to report, we encourage them to publish on these conferences. And a few weeks ago, R.E.A.L launched its first newsletter where you can find reports of those who attended the conferences. And those who were unrepresented, those who were in the shadow, are now in the spotlight. This is what we are doing. We are empowering young and not so young individuals who may feel otherwise vulnerable, who may feel otherwise powerless, to step up and be a part of larger international arbitration community.
Thank you very much, Ilya, for sharing this perspective. I will perhaps pass the floor to Veronika Sandler. And my question to Veronika would be, Veronika, as you are originally from Latin America, and we all know that this is a very bright and diverse region, and where definitely the issues of ethnicity are very much up to the point. Maybe you can share some perspective of your region and just generally the efforts that women based in arbitration Latin America implement towards promoting ethnic diversity in arbitration.
Of course, Elena, thank you so much. So let me comment from a Latin American perspective. Latin American is a region of huge cultural diversity with native people and a significant Afro-American population. At the same time, Latin America people share a common colonial past, which generated a new interaction with the native population that we here call the mestizaje. This is the interaction between the original or the native population and the new interaction with all the colonial rules. Although in the recent past there is a development on no discrimination on racial grounds, there is much work to be done. I note that despite the most recent statistics showing an exponential development on arbitration in Latin America, the majority of counsel and arbitrators participant in international arbitration in arbitration in Latin America scope are still male or from Europe or United States. Virtually almost nobody is from Latin America. It's important for the arbitration system incorporate professionals who do not conform to the traditional expectation of Caucasian or European models, or even male models. For professional women in Latin America, the road is even more difficult in this macho culture. At Women Going Arbitration, we have focused on showing the talent of Latin American women professionals. We have concluded various agreements and programs of strategic cooperation with arbitral institutions and centers to offer Latin American women better visibility in the world of international arbitration. For example, last year we organized the first non-stop 24 hours online program with interviews and presentations by extraordinary women from all parts of the world in the field of international arbitration, generating a networking channel well beyond Latam. At Women Going Arbitration, we firmly believe that it's essential to develop and add to the arbitration system the talents of individuals and diverse groups. Our mission is to seek to use this difference to develop and improve the international arbitration system. Women Going Arbitration mission is precisely to take a step to eliminate all the preconception and the stereotypes to foster equality and opportunity for both women and men. Thank you, Elena.
Thank you so much, Veronica, for sharing these insights. Our final subtopic that is on our agenda today is gender and socio-economic and cultural aspects, and maybe some political aspects as well. And I would now like to pass the floor to Veronika Burachevskaya from Russian Women in Arbitration, who will share her perspective and views on the interrelation between gender and socio-economic and cultural aspects of diversity.
Thank you, Elena. And I will first join everyone in saying that it's a great honor to be part of this panel, esteemed panel, and to discuss very important topics of intersectionality and gender diversity. When it comes to socioeconomic and cultural diversity, I would say that this might be not the most common or obvious topic or type of diversity that is usually discussed. At the same time, it's a good sign that the arbitration communities at least recognize the problem of lack of diversity, gender, socioeconomic and cultural diversity, and that this topic, at least we started to discuss this topic. And actually, that was one of the issues that we also discussed at the Russian Women in Arbitration Association when we launched one of our initiatives, interviews with outstanding female practitioners, recognized female practitioners all over the world. I think each of them mentioned the issue of socioeconomic and the necessity to promote socioeconomic diversity and cultural diversity. Because and it's a great sign that we at least comprehend and understand that there is a problem. And even Insitute, I must mention that even Insitute working group, which deals with the reform of investor-state dispute resolution system, in one of its working papers, mentioned that unfortunately developing states tend towards appointing arbitrators representing I would say Western cultures, so Europeans, North Americans, rather than looking to decision makers from their own legal backgrounds and cultural traditions. And indeed, in my view, it's really important to so that stakeholders, clients would understand that the socioeconomic diversity actually, and in the end, eventually benefits very much to the very purpose of international arbitration, which is effective and efficient resolution of international disputes. And it benefits it in many ways, but I would mention, at least two issues or two perspectives how it can benefit. First of all, it benefits decision-making of arbitrators. And here I would refer to social studies of groupthink, I think it's called groupthink phenomenon. So there were social studies and social research of how the group of decision makers behaves, and a group of decision makers from privileged backgrounds who went to similar schools or universities, they usually came up with the same answers and with the same solutions because they had the same experience. While decision makers, a group of decision makers consisting of representatives of different social, cultural backgrounds, so those who had different social experiences, they could spot additional risks and problems. And so they could comprehend a problem, in many ways. And in the end, they came up with a more efficient solution. So I think these studies and this conclusion, they also relate and they also apply to tribunals' decision making. And second thing, it's well known that when we talk about international arbitration, we talk about international disputes, which usually involve many cultural aspects, many issues of different traditions and maybe even different socioeconomic aspects, and it's a broader access of lawyers from various socioeconomic backgrounds and lawyers having different cultural backgrounds would only benefit, would only help to understand the issues in dispute better. So that is maybe how that is why socioeconomic and cultural diversity is important for international arbitration. And again, it's important for stakeholders to understand it as well, the good side of it. And of course, when we talk about socioeconomic diversity in international arbitration, or the lack of it, this problem is closely related with a more general problem of access to legal education. And of course, the increase in university fees and student debts, they of course may become a burden for many people who just cannot afford it, the education. Another issue that I would like to mention is unpaid internships, that also the unpaid internships at top arbitration practices and law firms that may also preclude some lawyers from having such internships. But at the same time, when we talk about unpaid internships, I really want to make it clear that we're not talking about getting rid of them or decreasing them. And I think that's something that we discussed with my co-panelists when we prepared for the discussion, that it's important to understand that we're not talking and we're not asking to get rid of those unpaid internships, but rather to help to provide mechanisms that would allow or enable more lawyers from various socioeconomic backgrounds to get access to those unpaid internships by means of, for example, scholarships and financial support. And this, so what are those mechanisms actually? What are those practical tools that can help to increase socioeconomic and cultural diversity in international arbitration? And I would start maybe with technologies, because I think it might be a key solution actually to this problem. And it's one of the good things that the pandemic left us with, the increase in usage of technologies and virtual internships and et cetera. So so first of all, with the increase in use of technologies, more people get access to virtual meetings, virtual networking events, which they otherwise wouldn't be able to afford due to expensive flights and et cetera. And another really useful tool is, as I mentioned, virtual or online or remote internships. And actually, there are already examples of SIAC virtual internship program, virtual ADR student program, which actually was launched by CRP and Careers in Arbitration. Exit internship, they launched a remote online internship. So there are many ways which should be explored, and I urge and I ask young practitioners to explore this, because it really helps to get access to those internships that maybe wouldn't be so accessible otherwise. Second tool, which is more traditional, is scholarship, of course, and it's also a good sign that there is an increasing number. At least I feel that there is an increasing number of scholarships targeted particularly for female practitioners. And well, I already mentioned the Russian Women in Arbitration Scholarship, which is aimed to help and young female arbitration practitioners. I should also mention that there are several universities launched specific scholarships also for female law students and et cetera. Another important tool is initiatives that help lawyers from diverse backgrounds to get access to international arbitration job openings. And here I should mention Dana's colleague from ArbitralWomen, Amanda Lee, who founded a great initiative, Careers in Arbitration. It's an online tool which helps to and gives access to various openings in international arbitration, and makes the whole process of search for those openings more transparent, and accessible. And last but not least, of course, the role of arbitral institutes in promoting their lawyers or academics, young arbitrators from various backgrounds, various cultural backgrounds, and including them in their lists of arbitrators, or launching any other initiative that may help in this regard. So I think, in short, that's everything I wanted to, that's the main issues I wanted to highlight today. So
many thanks to you, Veronica, for that. I would like maybe to follow up of one of the important issues that you touch in your speech, and this is the impact of COVID pandemic on socio-economic and cultural aspects of international arbitration. And from what you said, I feel that there is definitely a silver lining. And of course, the world has changed a lot, and there is definitely a big negative side of that. But with that, it also brings some new opportunities and it opens some new doors. And I would like our speakers maybe to follow up on that and to reflect from your personal experience whether you evidence the positive impact of what pandemic has brought to the world of international arbitration, and how the increased access to technology also helps for those groups who were less represented and who had difficulties with access to conferences, to big arbitration events, to increase their visibility and gain more access. So, Dana, Veronica, who would like to start?
I'm happy to speak and then pass it on to Veronica. So I very much agree that there is a silver lining of the pandemic when it comes to technology empowering access to the international arbitration space by many underrepresented groups, and directly with respect to the socioeconomic barriers that many face for the international arbitration field, because it used to, by definition, require travel. So looking at it from an age perspective, a young age perspective, I would mention that, by example, ArbitralWomen has been able to sponsor many more teams participating in either JESUP or BIS or the mediation moots. And that is allowing many, many more people at a young age to participate in the international arbitration space. And I think that that's something that increasingly ArbitralWomen is dedicated to. And with the online platforms that many of the moots are now using, going on year 3, there's more funds available from a nonprofit and sponsoring law firms that also support through ArbitralWomen, the teams participating, to make it possible for entry into this field. And I think that the entry through the moots is a fabulous opportunity. I also think that, I've mentioned before that Racial Equality for Arbitration Lawyers, R.E.A.L, has issued many dozens, close to 70, if not more than 70 scholarships to attend arbitration events. I think that is in many respects possible thanks to the online aspect of the arbitral events taking place during the pandemic. So R.E.A.L was launched at a time when the world pivoted to virtual, and that allowed, I think, R.E.A.L to really launch tremendously more quickly than maybe it would have if there had not been a situation that brought us all together in the virtual world. So, and many other initiatives have been launched during the pandemic. And I think that somebody mentioned, Veronica, you mentioned Careers in Arbitration. That is a fabulous organization launched by Amanda Lee, who is on the ArbitralWomen board and an inspiration to so many people around the world. She's involved in many, many organizations, as well as the organization that she founded that I'll put a link into the chat. That is an online platform, so you would find that on LinkedIn. And Careers in Arbitration has partnered with many other recently launched organizations or initiatives to bring greater access to those who have previously not had access due to socioeconomic barriers to arbitration. So, for example, I believe it was Careers in Arbitration together with Digital Coffee Arbitration. I'm getting the name wrong, but you know what I mean. And Tales from the Tribunal, they got together and they launched Arbitration Idol, which is a program that makes available mentors in the arbitration space to new entrants in the arbitration space. There's also been a myriad of initiatives launched to take advantage of the virtual platforms that people are now much more familiar with. At ArbitralWomen, we did ArbitralWomen Connect, and that was to, online in the virtual world, help connect people who were otherwise going to be isolated and prevented from being in the international arbitration space if we didn't have those kinds of programs. But there are many of them. So I think that technology is critical to empowering those who face socioeconomic barriers. And I really hope, and I do expect, that the online initiatives and the online platforms will continue to be part of the new normal after the pandemic is gone. I think that there's really no turning back at this point. Everybody has seen the benefits. I don't think that that will preclude us from getting together in person, but I do think that there will be many online initiatives and conferences and all sorts of networking opportunities online. So people should continue to look for them, even when the health and safety authorities around the world declare the pandemic lessened. I'm not going to say over, because I don't want to jinx anything and I don't know when it's going to end, if ever. But I think that regardless of the health and safety conditions around the world, the virtual platforms are going to be critical to socioeconomic entry, to regional entry, to ethnic entry, to all of the obstacles that we have faced. I think that we have learned that this is a really important way to empower entry to those who have to date been really prevented from doing it. So, and these regional organizations and the initiatives that have been launched in the middle of a pandemic, which has been like a very traumatic and difficult time, it's incredible how many initiatives were launched in that very difficult time. And those are the initiatives that show that the younger generation is committed to really entering this space and assisting each other in entering this space. So I sort of look as almost a parent on these young, new generation entrants and applaud them, because I've never seen the determination in the way that I've seen it now. So let's end on a high note about socioeconomic entry, because I think that this is really a time of change and we should all embrace it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dana, for your inspirational considerations. And this is really something important, I think, in all fields and for all generations and all genders, is to try to look at the positive side of each phenomenon, of each life event, and to take out the best of it, despite all the negative sides of each experience. So thank you very much for that. Veronika, what is your perspective on the socio-economic and cultural aspects of diversity in arbitration?
Yes, thank you, Elena. I know that we are short in time, so I briefly I want to say that first of all, that of course I'm totally agree with Dana. Technology and transparency are I think that they are the two more important tools that women we have right now to develop our careers. I think that the combo, we can say technology plus in this case transparency, they're very important to this idea about the visibilization and the visibility of women in international arbitration, of the field of international arbitration. And I would like to stress the interplay I'm sorry, of gender and education, something that Dana mentioned. And I think it's very important to stress this interplay. Education, I think, is the key to getting a greater diversity. Education needs to focus on the explicit identification and the detection of this kind of misperception or stereotype that we mentioned. At the university level, the professor staff, particular in, for example, at the universities, is usually to include many women as professors. But our students must to expose to more number of high-level deans or director for the career women. We cannot continue to expose students almost exclusively to male authors or legal texts. We need to generate more role models for women, for example, in high academic positions. Women in arbitration, we have worked regarding creating educational programs and participate in different academic activities, like moot courts, like mentioned Dana in her presentation. This year, for example, Women in Arbitration supported the International Arbitration Competition, the largest Spanish language commercial arbitration competition in the world, to have the first time in 13 years history, a majority of women arbitrators in the eliminatory rounds, and organized an event in the scope of this competition, competition, an event for students and professors, two others important of gender diversity in professional education for lawyers. I think that this panel is precisely the way that women in arbitration have chosen to fight our battles in favor of diversity in arbitration. So congratulations for this event, congratulations for my co-panelists, and thank you so much for this opportunity and to start this dialogue. This is the important. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Veronica. I would like to echo your thanks and to thank very much all our speakers today, Ilya, Dana, Veronica, for your excellent presentations and for the views and considerations based on your personal examples and the organizations that you represent, that you share with the audience. I think it was very fruitful and I would say inspiring discussion that we had today. And I hope that it will help our participants to make more informed and diverse decisions when it comes to the appointment of arbitrators, when it comes to choosing an expert in arbitration, or just when it comes to everyday decisions about employing lawyers, about promoting your female colleagues, or just generally supporting your female colleagues in your everyday work life. And we also had an opportunity to have questions from the audience, but from what I can see from the chat, there are no questions so far, but it does not mean that you cannot approach our speakers personally, either in LinkedIn or ask for contact details from the organizers. I think that everyone will be open and ready to provide more comments or ask any question that you may have on what we discussed. And based on that, I would like to conclude our discussion and thank very much again our esteemed panelists and the organizers, the Russian Arbitration Center, for the great panels that we had, and our participants for their keen attention. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me, and I'm sure we're all grateful to participate in this. And I recruit all of you who are watching, if you are available, to participate in the many pre-moots, BIS pre-moots around the world that desperately need arbitrators. It's a fantastic opportunity to get some experience as arbitrators, to network with people in the arbitration space. And this is the peak season starting now between February and March. There's going to be hundreds of pre-moots. So look for them online and participate in them online. It's a great way to further your career, meet people, get experience, build your network, and you never know what else is in the silver lining of the virtual pre-moot world this year. So thank you for having me. Thank you for including ArbitralWomen in this event, and stay well and safe, everyone.
Thank you so much. I hope to see you very soon, in person or online, but I hope to see you very, very soon. And thank you so much for this event and the organization for the space that we made. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much. On behalf of Russian Women in Arbitration, it was a great discussion, and thank you. Hopefully useful as a first step to increase various types of diversity in international arbitration. Thank you so much.
Thank you. On behalf of R.E.A.L, it's been a pleasure.